Alright guys, today what we're going to do to kind of finish up our sketching unit is look at isometric sketches of the step block and the slant block. Okay, so we'll start out with the slant block. I think we've talked about the dimensions before. You can see them here. You can also see them on pictures on the website. I will want you to fill out your title block neatly, just like we've done in the past. This will be the slant block. Your date will obviously be whatever the date is when you do this. And to start out with, like we did yesterday, we're going to make sure that our shape is going to fit. We're going to go with a 1 square equals 1/2 of an inch scale on here. So I have a 6-inch long by 3.5 inch tall part. I want to pick myself a good starting point. I've done this a few times before, so hopefully I'll have plenty of space. I'm going to start here. 6 inches would be 12 squares. Three and a half inches tall on the y-axis would be 7 squares. And then my depth is only 1.5 inches, so that's 3 squares. And just judging by that and not making the entire glass box, I can tell that I'm going to have room. Again, a lot of times if we aren't cutting it extremely close, because we are on this isometric paper, we don't make the entire glass box. We just do a few steps into it and make sure that we're somewhat centered and that we aren't going to run off onto our title block. Now that I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and draw my front face in. I'm going to draw my Y and my X by connecting the points that I just made. I'm not going to worry about my Z-axis just yet. Remember to try to draw nice straight lines in one pencil stroke so that the ends of your lines connect nice and neat. Your line weight is consistent and you don't have double or scribbly lines. So to complete the front face of this object, I've got 1.5 inches up for one end of the slant, 2 inches over on the other end of the slant. So that would put me at 4 squares over here, would equal my 2-inch portion, and 3 squares over here for that 1.5 inch portion staying in scale. Now is a time when I'm going to draw a line that isn't on the lines that already exist on the paper. I'm going to connect these points for the slant. And you'll notice that line is not on any of the lines that are pre-printed on the paper because it is not exactly on the X, Y, or Z axis. Our thickness you can see is 1.5 inches. So again, we're looking at 3 squares. I have it here. Basically, I want to transfer it out to each one of those points, and then I should be able to connect my points. A lot of times we start with the visible faces or the faces that would be touching the outside of the glass box, like this end and the top. And then once that is done, I can connect from point to point to get the other side of that slant in, which the relationship between those two lines should be parallel, just like we've talked about several times before. Remember, when you get this drawn on the large ISO paper, I want you to get a piece of what we're going to use for our orthographic projection paper. And I want you to transfer this onto here. Remember, you're going to count the same amount of squares. They're just a lot smaller squares, so it'll be a smaller drawing. Let's take a quick look at the step block while we are at it. Find another piece of paper here. The step block is a lot larger, so we're going to have to be a little more cautious about how we make everything fit. So let's hope that I can get this to fit the first time. Notice 7 long, 5.5 tall. If I pick my starting point here on the x-axis, if I am 7 inches long, that's going to be 14 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 5.5 inches tall, again, is 11. And 1.5 inches deep is going to be 3. Now, if I want to glass box this whole thing, I know that the entire thing is going to be 11 tall from this side. Okay, I know that I'm only 1.5 inches here, but I want to make sure I can go all the way up. 1.5 inches deep here, 1.5 inches deep here. I may not use all of those points. I'm not even going to connect all of them now, but that shows me that I've got plenty of space there, and I actually could have centered my drawing a little bit better up and to the right. Okay, let's start working our way around this front face. I know that I can, on the left side, I can connect those 2 points all the way up and down, and on the bottom, I can connect those 2 points all the way up, all the way from left to right. So I'm going to go down my x-axis, the full 14 squares. On my y-axis, I'm going to go my full 11 squares. That gets me started. I'm going to continue to work and draw this front face before I worry about the depth at all now. 3 inches over, 2 inches down. That's going to be 6 squares by 4 squares for the first step. The next step is a 2 by 2 step, which is going to give me 4 squares by 4 squares. And then the final step is again 2 squares by 1.5 inches, or excuse me, 2 inches by 1.5 inches. So 4 squares over 3 squares down. I should end up even with the end of the bottom part that I first drew. So there's my 4 squares over, 3 squares down. Now I can see some of the depth I've already drawn in here. This I don't need, okay? I'm going to get rid of those. But from each corner, since my depth is consistent down the whole thing, I can go over 1.5 inches or 3 dots. 3 lines, excuse me, boxes. I can work my way around that. I prefer to start by just drawing all my depth lines, like we said, kind of like we do on an oblique, except for we're being much more precise and to scale when we're on an isometric. We want everything on our isometric nice and neat. Finished version of the step block. I did not put my scale in here, okay, so I need to do that. We fit it in there at 1 square equals 1/2 inch. Remember, we always want our information in the title block nice and neat in all capital block letters. Since we have time, I will fill that out on here. And I would also do the same for the slant block, for those of you that just did the slant block. With this one also, we're going to transfer it over onto our smaller grid paper, our smaller isometric paper, and then we will move on when I come back to working on our 3 views, and then eventually moving on to the Inventor software. So that's what we've got for today. Hopefully that makes sense, and you remember kind of what we did with the L block and the U block earlier on, and these drawings will be no issues for you.